My name is Gregory Allen Seurer. I was a E5 or a specialist 5. I was a crew chief aboard a Huey helicopter in Vietnam. One of the things back then, we had a lottery, and they drew a lottery, and so many out of like the 360, it was based on the date of the year, and depending where you fell on the in the lottery determined whether you got drafted or not. And the year that I went in, they called 215 and my number was 93. No, I went in, I was 19 years old. One of the reasons I enlisted was my brother's best friend and a really good friend of mine, Rodney Jacobson, had just gotten back from Vietnam. They're 2 years older than me, my brother and Rod. And Rod was in the infantry. And he said, if you get drafted, you have a 95% chance of becoming an 11 Bravo, which is infantry, and you don't want to go to Nam in the infantry. The other aspect of it was, I thought if I'm going to go in, I want to learn a trade or something that I can turn into a career or whatever. And I thought at the time, aviation mechanics might be a good thing, work for an airline or whatever when I get out. And so I signed up to go in the aviation mechanics. The war as a whole, I think, in Breckenridge, Minnesota, we were somewhat insulated from, the San Francisco or what was going on, the colleges and the protests and things like that. And, the hedonism of youth, you really, it was always in the background that the war was going on and people were getting, killed and things like that. But I think until you were actually faced with the reality of it affecting you, I was never a big cause person, type of thing. So I guess I didn't I didn't think the war, they preached the war to stop the spread of communism. But yet in the same vein, we never fought to win it. We take the same LZ every 2 weeks or something, almost like an exercise, as opposed to, actually going after the enemy and accomplishing something. Well, first of all, you go to basic training. I went to Fort Lewis, Washington. Then I went to Fort Rucker, Alabama, and I was there for, I believe, 15 weeks. And the first 14 were dealing with Huey helicopter and maintenance and learning the various nuances of my job responsibility. And then the last week you spent with the armament and learning how to fire an M60. And the last half a day, they give you classes on know your enemy. And it's just short enough and vague enough that when you get to Vietnam, you look cross-eyed at everybody because you really didn't understand the culture or anything. And they really didn't give you, I think, adequate information to really be able to assess your situation when you got there. But, and I loved flying and stuff. And, so I became a crew chief and I was a company commander's crew chief. I had 3 or 4 really good friends that we did different things with, and my hoochmate Blair Thomas, who later died, we were really good friends. Something that always stuck with me, we were one of the missions in Laos associated with Lam Sam was, when you're in a heavy fire team, you go to 4 corners so that you crisscross and you spray the area with whatever armament's necessary, whether it's rockets, miniguns, or whatever. And you crisscross from all 4 corners. We're flying, we're not really catching much flak. And he's coming this way and I'm going this way, and I wave and we go up to the corner, turn around, and they're gone. They got blown out of the air. And just like that, all 4 of them, and that bothered me for a long, long time. I think everybody in that situation is much, much closer to God than they'll ever be again. if God says my time is up, it's up. I can't sit there and dwell and every day. You can't go into combat. You're always scared, but you can't go into combat every day thinking, I hope I don't die, because you're not going to think straight. And then a lot of times, you come back to your hooch, and most people either drank or they smoked something or they were into God or whatever, but you all had a crutch of some sort. But I think there were people that didn't want to get close to people because they didn't want to, the reality they may not be there. Because nobody goes into combat unafraid. You're all scared, and you don't know if it's your last day. You just don't know. And I don't know. Your mindset isn't normal. You're going to go shoot at people and get shot at, and I don't know how you describe it. It's you do what you have to do, and you do things that you would have never guessed you were physically or mentally capable of doing. But you rise to the occasion as best you can. Anyway, we went into Laos. I think they called it Hotel 2 was the LZ that they named. And on the first time in, we took a whole bunch of fire, went back out. The guns came in, just peppered the area, went back in. And all of a sudden they were lobbing mortars and stuff. And I got hit. And we shooting at the tree lines and stuff, where all muzzle flashes and stuff where they were shooting at us. And when we got hit, we were on fire. And so he pulls up and we're taking off. And that's when I got the big one through my abdomen and blew my hip out. And we were still firing, and everything. And we went to an open LZ, an open area where he could go down. And we hit pretty hard. And as we were exiting the aircraft, we were getting fired at and everything. And I took 3 of them out, and I was shooting, and my gunner had been killed, and I'm trying to take him to the recovery helicopter. And I'd lost so much blood, I collapsed. And the crew chief from the other helicopter jumped out and got me in, and then got Blair in, and they flew me to PZ Kilo south of Kozlak, where the interesting thing, we weren't supposed to be in Laos, so we couldn't wear our dog tags. Anyway, company commander had enough wherewithal to, what's your blood type, Craig? Because it's on your dog tags, but if you're not wearing it. And he's when we get to PZ Kilo, and they're taking me out on a stretcher and everything, and he's yelling, he's O positive, he's O positive. Well, I'd lost so much blood, I had IVs in both arms. And they put a pressure tourniquet on me and flew me to the 28th Medevac in Quang Tri. And when I got there, they're cutting all my clothes off and everything, and this nurse wants to know my name. And I can hear her, and she's got her ear by my mouth, and I can hear her asking, but I don't have enough energy to tell her who I am. And she, anyway, then they put me out. And during this whole thing, I'm not in a lot of pain. And they explained to me that your body can't register it. And every day, amputees would roll by and crutches walk by. And it was pretty hard to feel sorry for yourself when you had all 4 extremities. But anyway, during the course of that hospitalization, you get to talk about Vietnam. You get to deal with it. You get to, the whole concept of the VA Vet Center program is group therapy. And guys get together and because veterans a lot of times will say, well, you've never been there, you don't know, type of thing. I grew up in the military. I lived with my father from the 8th grade till he died when I was a senior, and never really had the direction I should have had. And the military made me, learn discipline. And I needed the military at that stage of my life. I needed that guidance. And by the way of getting shot in voc rehab, I got a college education. I got a job working for the Disabled American Veterans that opened doors that I made the most of. I met Debbie the day I got out of the hospital. Next month we've been married 51 years, so had a good life.